overnight we realized as a country we don't really have great technology in place to care for this aging population. And so I was like, okay, well then why don't you make an investment in a female-founded tech company in Montana? And he was like, who are you?
The following is a Big Sky Economic Development production.
Welcome to The Vault, a Montana-based business podcast where we highlight the people and ideas driving our region forward. I'm your host, Marcel Bruschi.
You're listening to The Vault.
Joining us today on The Vault is Avanlee, founder and CEO of Avanlee Care, a technology company focused on helping family caregivers remotely care for an aging parent from anywhere in the world.
Hi.
Hi, welcome. And we also have Paul, which is becoming a familiar voice, so you might hear that too.
Good afternoon.
Hello. Avanlee, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Yeah. You have a really good, radio voice. Do people tell you that?
Yeah, I've been told that.
Yeah. Okay.
I've been told I have a face for radio for sure.
Haven't we all? Yeah. Yeah. You've been on our list because you've been a member with us,
yes,
kind of going back and forth. But for those that don't know you, let's just dive into the Avanlee story of who you are.
Of who I am.
Yeah,
versus,
we like to start way back.
Yeah, Avanlee the person versus Avanlee Care the company.
Which we'll get to that.
Yeah. So I'm from Billings. I grew up here and I went to high school here, graduated in 2009. And then I left. I left Billings. Like most people who grew up in Billings are like, the first thing I'm going to do is get out of Billings. And it's funny because then you always are like, you become an adult and you start working and you're like, oh, I want to go home.
I want to go back.
I want to go back to Montana. And then it was interesting because, Montana has become cool now. Mm-hmm. Most Montanans are probably like, no, please go back to your home state. But, I left, I went to school, a couple colleges, and then I had a really unique opportunity to, I actually dropped out of college and I got on with a tech company in the EMR space. I just didn't know what I was wanting to do with my life. I was going to nursing school and, I just took the opportunity to really get to know this industry. And I moved to Scottsdale, Arizona for a little bit, and I loved Scottsdale except for in the summertime. But
it's hot. It was really hot in the summer.
It was so hot. But I got on with this tech company and I was learning everything I could about electronic medical records. And then eventually I got recruited on at a company called Forcura. And I worked for this incredible CEO named Craig Mandeville. Forcura actually just got, I think, acquired for close to $1 billion, which is crazy. And he was this tall guy from Texas. And it was just such a great experience for me, especially in what I'm doing today, because Craig was an incredible CEO. And I was probably employee number 5 there. And so it was just like they had found product market fit and they were selling into large home healthcare companies. So it was just like you were learning trial by fire. And I was traveling everywhere. And it was fun because I was building a book of business and I was only like 24 years old. So that's kind of how I left Billings, how I got into this space. And then I moved to New York City. And on my dad's side of the family is originally from New Jersey, New York. And as a kid, we'd go there. I just always loved Manhattan. And I got a job offer there and I was working in the city, kind of in the tech senior care space. And that's just kind of when just one thing after another happened. And I just met really, influential people who are now some of the investors in my company who just took a bet on a normal average girl from Billings, Montana.
A girl from Montana. Yeah. But what led you into the healthcare space? Like you were going to nursing school. Like why healthcare?
First, I really liked technology in high school. Do you guys remember the Hastings store?
Oh yeah.
Yes, I never went because I'm from a town that doesn't have any of that. But yeah, I'm familiar. Yeah.
So I remember going to the Hastings store and checking out the book HTML5 for dummies. And like, this was, I was born in 1990. So in 2000, when the internet was, happening, do you remember watching the ball drop and they were saying that at midnight in 2000, like the internet
yeah.
Yeah.
Y2K. That
Yes.
was a scary
Wow,
time.
what a fun thing for you to say.
I'm aging myself, aren't I? There was a lot of protocol that we went through to ensure that the world was not going to end at that point in time.
Yeah. And so I just was really fascinated. I was a kid that was growing up with the internet boom. And then, but I remember playing Sims and Carmen Sandiego. So I always liked technology first. Healthcare became, or I guess the concept of healthcare became important to me when my grandfather got Lewy bodies, dementia, and Parkinson's, and or was diagnosed, I should say. And then my mom and grandma became primary caregivers for him. And I saw that beginning at the age of 10 until 18.
Wow.
And that was before we had technology to really do the things for caregivers and seniors to help people age in place and carry the burden and load of caregiving tasks. And so I think that experience as a young child, coupled with liking technology and kind of being a bit of a nerd, probably just influenced me to do the things I'm doing today. But the job in healthcare really was just, I knew I wasn't going to make it through college. I was not interested in going to class.
You did have, when you and I first met and we were talking, you had a really special mentor that was also a female in New York. Can you kind of tell us that story about her and her experience?
Yes. So that's Esther Dyson. Esther and I met in, I think, 2017. And Esther, a little bit about Esther, I actually just introduced her into the Tech Hall of Fame in New York. So I know all these things because I had to read it in front of a room of a lot of people. It was very intimidating. A lot of big Wall Street, scary people. So Esther grew up in Princeton. Her dad was Freeman Dyson and Oppenheimer was his boss.
Wow.
And really smart guy. Dyson Sphere in Space is named after him. She was from a family of scientists. Esther went to Harvard, I think at 16. And
Oh, wow.
She eventually ended up moving to New York City, and she was one of the first fact checkers at Forbes. And eventually she started her own newsletter in Manhattan. And so this was, her circle of people were these people that were starting companies like Apple, Google, and Microsoft. And so this was her world, and her friends were starting these companies, people she knew. And Esther, started making early investments in these companies. And so she also trained with the cosmonauts to go to space, which was incredible. So she's just done a lot in her life. And then she's made about close to 250 investments as an early stage angel investor. Some of these companies include Twitter, Facebook, Google, Square, Meetup, lots of healthcare companies now. She has a pretty big focus in healthcare. And so I met Esther. I will just never forget that day. I met Esther. I kind of got introduced to her by chance. She was an investor in Meetup. And I just remember she answered the elevator. She had no shoes on, which is funny because now I don't wear shoes in the office. And I think it grosses people out because my feet hurt all the time. But we just kind of got to know each other. And she was like, what are you really interested in doing? It doesn't seem like you're happy at your job in New York. And I wasn't. And I just said, I have a desire to start a company. And this is what I kind of want to do in the healthcare space. And she just said, great. Your dad doesn't sit on the board of Goldman Sachs, and you didn't go to an Ivy League school, and you're a female, so it's going to be harder for you to raise capital. So she said, I would go home back to Montana. And if you ever build it, call me. And that's what I did. I was like, okay. So I left and I went back to Bozeman. And this was 1 year before COVID. And I met my co-founder, Chris, here in Billings. And it was Esther's advice to just kind of take a leap of faith and do it. She never said she was going to invest. She did end up writing our first check into the company, and she's now the chairman of the board, among many other things that woman has done for me in my life. But that was how I met Esther. So she's just been a really, she's a role model. She's a friend. She's a mentor, but I just look up to her so much.
Like a really big part of your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you moved back to Montana.
Yeah.
And what'd you do when you got here?
Well, I think I tried to start Avanlee Care 1.0 in New York City, and it like failed miserably. So I sulked for a couple weeks and it's like, what am I going to do with my life? And eventually someone just said, if this company's supposed to happen, it'll happen, but you need to get up and you need to get a job. And so I met Chris, and this was 2 weeks before Christmas, and I think it was about to be 2019. And I said, here's a 3, 5, 10-year plan of what I want to build. This is the vision I have for this company. And I said, I hear you're one of the smartest developers ever. And he's truly a genius. And
which Chris are we talking about?
My co-founder, Chris Munson.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I said, I want you to do this. I can't pay you any money, but I can give you stock. And so that's how that came to be. And then I went to Bozeman. I got a job. I was living in Bozeman and kind of funding the company while it was getting built here and started.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And so you talk about it, but like you've had the idea, like you have the 10-year plan. How long have you, at that time prior to starting it and coming back to Montana, how long had you been like thinking about it, mulling it over, putting these like 5, 10-year plans into place? Because it doesn't seem like you just like woke up one day and you're like, here it is.
Yeah,
it seems like it's very thoughtful.
Yeah, I think being in an industry pre-COVID, anything to do with taking care of seniors is just not sexy. It's very hard work. There's 54 million unpaid family caregivers in this country. Almost 70 million people over the age of 65. And that is just the numbers of people turning 60. I think 10,000 people a day are turning 65. So the numbers are staggering. We don't have enough people going into the healthcare system to care, even for our generation. And not enough people are being born. And so I was like, okay, I know technology. I see a big gap here. There's a big problem that we're going to face, just not in the United States, but all over the world. And I think that I could fix this.
I got it.
If Life Alert's the only option for families and seniors, why not just, build an app that would take care of this? And so I think it was years of working in this space. I read a lot. So lots of market research reports. I listen to Bloomberg sometimes just as the background, just to kind of always understand what's going on in the market, what tech companies are doing, when Walmart started getting healthcare, that I was like, oh, this is definitely going to be something I need to be paying attention to, because getting food and medication into the home so people can age in place is really important. And so and then I met Esther, and she's like, you don't seem really happy in what you're doing. And I was like, well, I've been thinking about starting a company for like a couple of years, but I don't really know what that means. When people say I want to be an entrepreneur, I'm like, I don't think you really know what that means, because I wouldn't wish my job on anyone. And, I have maybe 3 good days a year at work. But for the last 5 years, every day it's like eating nails. And there were years where every month we were not going to make payroll. And so you're living in this constant state of, I have to raise enough money, find product market fit, convince investors, keep your company believing in the vision and the mission. You really don't have much of a personal life, and you are trying to, I really think it needs to be in your DNA if you're going to start a company.
Because what's kept you going through all of that? Like, you're like, you could just hang it up and go get a job, right? Like, what keeps you going?
That's a great question. When we started because I'm not a psychopath, like CEOs of Uber, like the Travis, I can't say his last name story, or it was when I was raising money and people early on were writing checks in this company with their money. And I was like, I know these people don't really have $50,000 to invest, and I want to make them a return on their investment. They're believing in me and this team before we really had a product like we do now. I mean, they were the early ones that were like, we think that what you're saying, we agree with what the problem you're trying to solve. But yeah, I would say that is a big motivator, is just people taking a bet on us. I want to honor them and their investment.
And it's difficult in this state to find those investors, unlike New York. I mean, I recognize that we have that issue with angel investors and with venture capitalists, but you found a way to kind of bridge that gap between the quality of life in Montana and what it offers with your connections in New York. Can you kind of walk us through that journey?
Yeah. So with Montana, I was in New York. We came back. I've kind of always gone back and forth, and I had to go back east. I tried to pitch Avanlee Care 1.0 in COVID, and it just, Montana's a great state in terms of people want to move here. There's a lot of opportunity but it's more around beer and agriculture and brewery and oil and gas and defense tech. It's not so much a healthcare tech state. It's never really been it's never really been a tech state. And so COVID and everything that's happened, especially in Bozeman and Big Sky, sometimes now I go there and I'm like, this place doesn't even feel real. But, and most people are like, oh yeah, let's look at Billings, because no one can afford to live in Bozeman now. But what's this influx of money was coming in, but there's only 3 funds in the state. And if 3 funds are your only option and they say no, well, then where do you go? And what most entrepreneurs and people who are starting companies don't understand is how a VC works. So if they make 10 investments for the year, 9 will fail. 1 has to make up for the whole fund. And so they're looking for companies who probably already have revenue, who are in market and have massive returns. They're not looking necessarily for, hey, I have my MVP. I just need to get from 0 to 1. We just want to raise $500K. That's a unique niche place where you really need angel investors. And so there's not, just per capita, there's not as many people in the state. And so I was told no by all 3 funds, and rightly so. We were way too early. And I called Esther. I was like crying. What do I do? Just well, stop crying.
I went to Montana, I said, and now here I am.
Stop crying. And she's like, well, you can crash in my spare loft. She has a few spare apartments in New York, and she let me crash in her 12th and 5th Street loft. And she's like, Vinny, see if anyone writes your check. And that's what I did. I drove back from Bozeman all the way to New York City and moved into that apartment. And we raised our first 2 rounds from that apartment during COVID. It was like a war zone in New York during those years. But it feels like that was like World War II or something. Not like a battle, but just like that long ago.
It does feel like a long time ago.
Yeah.
So different there than it was here.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes we didn't even realize anything was happening here.
Yeah, in Montana, but New York, it just was so different. But I knew that, the company wasn't going to survive if I headquartered it in New York and I had to pay a developer $175,000 starting. Those were the salary differences, or, good salespeople in New York City, what they're making. And so the beautiful thing about this business and what investors really liked out east was that we stayed headquartered here.
In Montana.
Montana, and that we were able to really grow and scale the team here because I was able to keep the burn a lot lower while we were in the development phase. And we were in development for years trying to find product market fit, trying to partner with retailers and pharmacies. And development takes so much time. And so that's how I really utilized, Paul, the network in New York and brought it back here. And I think during those COVID years, they really liked the idea of not being on the coast. But had I not gone back there, we wouldn't be where we are today. So it's kind of it's a bit of I have like this push-pull relationship between New York and Montana. I think Montana is a great place to build a business. I'm so thrilled to see more investment coming here. I think the most high caliber people I've ever worked with are from Billings, Montana. I mean, our team is just, they're mentally tough. They're in it together. They're good. They have great character, and we trust each other. And so, and people work hard. So I like that about being here in Montana.
And so when you were there during COVID raising funds, like what did that look like day to day? And you're in an apartment, it's COVID. Like Paul said, Montana's kind of like, we were down for a minute and then we're back to normal-ish.
Have you seen I Am Legend with Will Smith?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it was like in New York. One of my favorite memories during COVID was everything was shut down, and I was there in the winter of 2020. And I walked all the way up Park Avenue to the MetLife building where Grand Central Station is from where I live in Greenwich Village. It's like 12th Street. I had Frank Sinatra playing on Pandora on my phone. It was snowing, and not a car went past me or another person. And it was just the most
in
surreal. Yeah.
How did you make connections with people in such isolation?
I mean, I was on Zoom. People were still investing. The interesting thing was the easiest time to raise capital was during COVID. People were just writing checks left and right, and also into companies that were just ridiculous. And people lost a lot of money during COVID too, because they thought, oh, this company will take off, And so what COVID did for the caregiving senior care tech market was overnight we realized as a country we don't really have great technology in place to care for this aging population. And so all of a sudden our kind of sector became really desirable to a lot, like health plans and hospital systems, but also retailers and banks, and the big tech giants were looking at it. And so we were able to raise capital. I spent a lot of time in that loft, but then I would start to go nuts. I had my car out there, and so I would drive out to Montauk all the time. I was in Montauk all the time. I could not be in the city. I swam laps with Esther at the Y. The Y on 14th Street was open, so we would walk. She lived in her other apartment on 13th Street, 1 block away, and Esther's very on time. And so
she sounds like quite the lady, honestly.
She's got some incredible stories. But we would swim laps every morning to get out. We'd walk Washington Square Park, but you had to wear masks. Most people were social distancing. Not a lot of people were outside, so it felt pretty like I was apocalyptic. It
sounds
tough.
like that.
Yeah, it was tough to be there during COVID.
Like you needed those routines to just keep yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure at this time, we just went through, or we're going through, the senior care facilities being shut down here in Montana. The funding was drying up. It was already difficult at that time with those senior care facilities getting people in because, like you said, the population was continuing to grow with that generation. I'm sure you saw that as a potential opportunity and something that you could leverage by utilizing Avanlee as a stepping stone for those people that couldn't get into those facilities. Was there an opportunity there that you pitched with that?
Well, we in our first product, when that was happening with what was going on with senior care facilities, we were really trying to talk to senior care facilities, and they were interested in this because they were like, yeah, we need a way to let the adult children, the families know, like, mom is doing okay. She's taking her meds, and trying to coordinate all that care. What happened with, especially in New York, with how that was handled with Cuomo, those were not good situations. And Montana handled that a lot. I think it was handled better here, but we tried but I think everyone was just in such panic mode that it was just hard for them to get anything done. In the end, long-term care facilities are not the space that we wanted to really play in. There was a lot more that we'd have to build in terms of like integrating into their systems. But we tried really hard to get into a lot of senior care facilities, but it just was it was tough. The product wasn't what it is today, and we just had other priorities in terms of how do we get a product that's going to work really well and actually get the family caregivers in. And we found that with actually Medicare Advantage plans.
During COVID.
Yeah, I would say coming out of COVID, yeah.
So you raised a bunch of funds in 2020, and then 21 was probably still kind of similar in New York, where it's a little more isolated, I would say, I would assume.
So in terms of like the funding, everyone's funding journey is different. This is why I can't get on LinkedIn anymore and see everyone always like that OpenAI woman raised, $2 billion or something, or at a $2 billion pre-money value. I don't know if it was her valuation or she actually raised $2 billion. But I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. But everyone's funding different. Journey is different. But so in the fall of 2020, I was in New York City. I was in Esther's apartment, and we closed our first pre-seed round in the spring of 2021. And I had to raise so much money in order for my co-founder to quit his day job. It was like his 17-year career. So it was a huge deal that Chris quit. Then our VP of engineering, Travis Wentz, who was working with me at the tech company, was like, whatever you're doing, I'm following you. And so he came on.
That's
He's
impressive.
like, I need you.
Yeah,
I'm going with you, whatever it is.
I remember we took a walk. He's like, I don't care. I'm following you. And so he joined. So we had our team, just the three of us. And then Myra, she's VP of customer support, now quality. And then Myra came on. And so it was the four of us. It's always been like the core four from the beginning. And
she's a Rocky grad because I went to college with her. Right?
Oh, did you?
Yeah. She was a comms major.
Yeah.
And then I switched anyways. Yeah. And we ended up having a lot of communication classes together.
Oh,
because she's from like Broadview, Lavina.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just moved back. I don't know if I should be.
Yeah, no, you can share that. Yeah, she did just move back. She's really thrilled about that. And
which is cool that I didn't realize I knew she worked with you guys, but I didn't realize she was like in your like OG quad.
Yeah. Well, Myra, her first interview, she was like sitting in her closet, doing a FaceTime interview with me. And I was like, well, it's fine, Myra. So Myra's been really great. And so we then raised again in 2022. And this last round has been interesting. I'm about to announce a close. That I just remember in 2023, a lot of our investors were like, stay alive. Because that was when, in all the companies that were coming out in like 2019, 2020, by 2024, half of the companies I know in this space were running out of money or gone. And so, and in other spaces too, in the health tech world and bioscience, they were just running out of money. They couldn't find product market fit, couldn't get their technology built. And so a lot of companies, most of the companies I know that started up in that time are no longer here today. And so I knew we were going to have to just survive. And so we cut our burn down as much as we could, and we had to focus on building, the integrations we had to build, but also redefining the product. And then we pivoted to Medicare Advantage, which most good startups do pivot. And we pivoted to Medicare Advantage, and we went through making the product SOC 2 compliant. We're launching it now in multiple languages. And I knew that was just going to be another year of burn. And so that's kind of like what my job has been. It's like this balancing act of you are showing your investors that you're doing what you're saying you're going to be doing. You're also overseeing product development, and then you're keeping the company funded, and then you're, looking out for the competition. And then once you're in product market fit, it's providing the value to these Medicare Advantage plans and continuing to sell. And then you're looking at the next round. So I will close this, and I'm already thinking about a Series A. So it's just kind of constantly looking ahead into the future. And that's what my life is.
You know, I have to say that you mentioned that your investors said, just stay alive. And the one thing that I've always been impressed with you is you are compelled to do what you say. And you're not like a lot of people where you try this and, okay, it's not going as smoothly as I've liked, but you seem to push through those difficult times. And that's why I've enjoyed kind of following your career and what you've been doing. You know, you spend a lot of time with the homeless, you feed people, you do a lot of things that are very philanthropic, if not with your money, with your time. You give where you can, but is it your mentor that helped you see that you're going to go through hard times and that there is light at the end of the tunnel?
Esther and the team, especially my co-founder, Chris, there was a lot of, through starting Avanlee Care, just personal things that my life changed, and that in a way that I never thought it would change. One of the hardest moments of my life, I was, in this, we raised our first round, and I stepped into motherhood. Unfortunately, I stepped into motherhood by myself, and I had to raise a round, and I was so pregnant in New York, very pregnant. And I really blew up in my pregnancy. I've lost almost all the baby weight now, but I gained a lot of weight. And so I was just so pregnant, and I was 31 weeks pregnant, and I had to raise a round, and I had to go pitch. I won't say the group because they're now an investor in this company, but I had to go pitch this angel group in Manhattan. And I remember calling Esther. I was like, I don't want to do this. No one is going to invest in a pregnant woman. It's a room full of 70 men. I don't want to do this. And Esther was I think she was about to step off the board of Yandex. So she was somewhere in the Middle East at a board meeting. And she just was it was 2:00 in the morning. And I just remember she's like, no, I'm getting on. I'm going to talk to this group. She was an angel in this group. And she's like, you want investors. If anyone invested in you today, it'll be people that actually believe in you. Mm-hmm. And I remember pitching and just everyone looking at me like, how is this woman going to have a baby and then actually get this company off the ground, And 2 people of the 70 made the investment in the company. Wow. That was it. But they're 2 really great investors. And those are the types of people you want on your founding team, that you want on your early cap table, that you want as an advisor and a board. You really want people who say, sometimes life throws you a curveball, and they're going to walk with you through the trial and the storm, and they're not going to abandon you. And at the end of the day, just care well, what's this going to be? What's my return on the investment in this? And so that was probably that season of my life in 2023, 2024, when I was having to navigate a lot of that by myself. And then also too, I had my sweet little son who's 3 now, Adam. I was flying back to New York with Adam, and I was, running a company, taking investor calls. We were launching integrations and partnerships with Walmart and Mark Cuban, and we were rolling out a new product. And you know what? Adam was at almost every meeting.
There he was, watching you do it.
Yeah. I think that kid has met more famous people. He's going to grow up and see pictures of some of the stuff that he's gotten to do and be like, wow, Mom.
Damn, Mom, you're impressive.
I think that's pretty cool.
That's my mom.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that was that. The last couple of years, it's been a great joy to be a mom. It's also been very challenging. I wouldn't, my mom quit her job to take care of my son for the last, the first 2 years of his life. And then, lots of people made sacrifices for me to be able to continue to do this job.
One or the other of those is difficult to do, but to do both says a lot about you.
Thanks.
Well, and that you're building something that people really believe in, so that they're like, whatever we need to do, like, we'll come in, we believe in you, and what can we do to help you make that happen is really huge for what you're doing, which we've talked about it, right? Like Avanlee Care, but what do you guys do? What's Avanlee Care? Why'd you name it Avanlee Care? What do you do?
Well, the plan was not to put my name on the company.
It sounds good.
It's a cool
it's a pretty name.
It's beautiful.
Thanks. I appreciate it. The Avanlee, the name, when we were trying to name this company, everything under the sun has been trademarked or used now on the internet. And so I was in New York and I was getting a coffee at Joe's Coffee on Wall Street. And I just remember the guy was like, "What's your name?" I said, "Avanlee." And he wrote it on the cup and he goes, "What a cool name. Has that ever been used? I've never heard that." And I went upstairs.
I've never met anyone named Avanlee before.
Yeah. I went upstairs and did a trademark search on the name. It was free. The URL, Avanlee, was available. And I was like, I think it was like an expired, it was once used for a birth and maternity center in Texas, like 10 years prior. There was nothing on the internet with the spelling of my name. And so my co-founder was like, let's just buy it all up. And so we bought it all up and we're like, well, maybe we'll use it. I don't know. And so now I'm like, I need to change my name to like Victoria. But that's how the name came. It kind of just stuck.
Thank you, coffee shop barista.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I know. I got to go back there.
Thank you. Yeah.
We started the company when we launched into COVID. It was an app for caregivers. We wanted to monitor meds, doctor's appointments, vitals, alert, my brother or sister that mom's heart rate was out of whack, that she wasn't taking her meds, she wasn't feeling good. But then we partnered and integrated into Walmart. So we built into their APIs. And what that means is that allowed for shopping and like over-the-counter products, health and wellness products available in our app.
And how did you get the Walmart deal?
During COVID, Walmart had just launched their online pickup and delivery API. And they were like, hey, I remember pitching them and be like, this is the vision of like where healthcare is going and in the home. And I think they were kind of like, okay, let's just work with this company because they'd probably be a good test subject. They're not very big. If we screw things up, if they screw things up, it's not going to matter. Well, we ended up just finishing the integration and it actually worked really well. And so that's how Walmart came to be. And then Mark Cuban, I met through Esther, and he's like, hey, I can get behind, what you're doing on the med management side. Families need affordable medications. And that integration took like 3 days. It was great. And his team is great. I love Ron Harrison, who runs Cost Plus Drugs. And Mark has been super helpful too. Like, he'll always answer his email. I got to actually finally spend some time with him and Esther earlier this year at this Lake Nona Impact Forum. And he's just like a really nice guy. I saw him go head to head with the CEO of one of the largest Medicare Advantage plans in Florida. And that was a little scary because they have very different opinions on drugs. And Mark is a very opinionated person. And so we did that. And then it was really when we were working with such a large population of people that we had this just incredible trove of data. People were using Avanlee Care to really manage medications for an aging parent. We were averaging over 4 medications per senior. The caregivers were very involved in, hey, did you take your meds? Did you not? Then they were asking us, can we get this delivered online through your platform? And then they were booking doctor's appointments through this. And so, we sat down last summer over the 4th of July in Bozeman. Unfortunately, no one took a holiday. And we kind of put our heads together, brought in some really smart people in the Medicare Advantage space on our board and who are investors. One of our investors is a man named David Jones, and his father Mr. Jones Sr. founded Humana, and he has just been so incredible in helping me understand the Medicare Advantage market, but also understanding that these health plans, 60% of health plans' primary point of contact is not so much the member, it's the member's family caregiver, that adult child. It's the adult daughter calling in and saying, hey, what are my mom's benefits? Hey, who is her PT? Like, how do we get this information over here? And so he, for years, was just like, there's going to be a collision between the retailers, the health plans, and those who are caring for the senior. And that really goes back to what I saw back in 2014. I was reading Market Watch reports, And I remember reading these reports about Walmart getting into this space. Largest untapped market is hidden in plain sight, senior cares. And so it all came together, and we revamped, pivoted, and built a product specifically today for Medicare Advantage plans. And we launched that into the market. And that today, if you're to say, what does Avanlee Care do? We bridge the gap between health plans and caregiving families. And we do that by giving the family and the health plan a tool that they can communicate on through our platform.
Which is just an easy app you download, right?
Well, now it's more of a software to the health plans. The health plans are paying for it for their members and families, and they get direct access to the adult child to help mom get her annual wellness visit scheduled, make sure that her vaccination appointments are getting scheduled. We do all of that scheduling around chronic condition appointments, make sure meds are being taken. We have an online pharmacy, so those are being like fulfilled online through the pharmacies that we're partnered with, and groceries coming in from Walmart. And so the point of this is, can we live in a world where healthcare with somebody over the age of 65, we integrate in that family caregiver, because family caregivers are doing like $600 billion a year of like unpaid caregiving. And so, how do you integrate those 54 million people in that provide better outcomes for the patient, a better quality of life for the patient, but also to help these health plans improve their star ratings and provide a better service to their members?
I just want to say, I don't think that I know of another 24-year-old that would be reading that sort of thing. So you are an avid reader.
Yeah, I like to read. I was 24 10 years ago. I just want to make that really clear. So yeah, not anymore.
And what's your team's role? So you have a lot going on. You're partnering with pharmacies. You're doing this. Who you have your team? How big is your team, and what are their roles? You talked a little bit about yours.
So we run like a SEAL team. We're a pretty small team. We need to grow, but I think that'll happen. You'll see more over the next 12 months. We have some people that we are bringing on very soon. Right now, the team is 5, and including me, and primarily customer support, quality, and development. And we have a chief growth officer that has joined now, and he's brilliant, and we have more salespeople coming on. So when I kind of announce what we have coming with a new round soon, we'll start to expand more of the customer support team here in Billings and quality team here.
I know that as you scale this, there's always that fear, especially with investors, on the CEO syndrome. What is your weakness that needs to be filled with a void that helps you not enter into that sort of syndrome where you feel like you have to do everything?
Well, yeah, I mean, for the first couple of years, I had to do everything, but I worked at a startup too. Not Craig's, not for Care. For Care was great. Another one that CEO just couldn't get out of his own way and ultimately killed the startup. And I'm so thankful for those two. This is why people need to go work and get jobs out of college and like work, because you need to have experience and you need to see and learn from other people. I'm so thankful that I had that job because it taught me to get out of my own way. And there's, I believe you should hire people smarter than you. And then the second piece is you need to listen. And I've learned to take advice. People tell me stuff all the time. I've had to really just like stop talking to VCs and just tune it out, because it's just like they dangle the carrot. Some analyst that has never in his life, had to be in the trenches of a startup is just telling you what you should be doing. And I was just like, okay, I'm going to shut the VC like garbage off, and I'm just going to talk to our investors, our board, and my team, and other like kind of people in my world that have done this before, and seek advice that way. And that has been really, really helpful in terms of just like knowing when to say no and staying true to the vision. But I've had to get out of my own way many times and just like push a lot of responsibility onto other people. And I'm totally fine doing that, because, I don't think people should want to be like, oh, I want to be a CEO. Like Elon Musk, I remember that interview where he said, like being the CEO is like staring into the dark abyss and eating glass. Like you are just, every day, it's like you are trying to be like, solve these really, really hard problems. And so it's a tough job.
And not let your team down and others down in your world.
Yep.
Which you do a lot in New York. I mean, it's really fun to follow you on LinkedIn and just seeing all the things you're doing, because we don't see that right in Montana. Like these events you're going to aren't happening here. Can you talk a little bit about some of those things you are going to and why you're going and how you even got connected into those events?
Well, the startup ecosystem, and, this is why so many companies are started out of New York City. It's kind of like the center of the world for finance, is because a lot of people are there, a lot of money's there, and it's just historically where people go to kind of like make it. No one goes to New York City to be like, ooh, I want to live there. Like if you do, well, I like to live there, but it's like, you got to be a little crazy. Most people go there to make it. And so the few that like do make it and live, you start to build an ecosystem of just kind of, there's so many, I mean, I could go to 1,000 events in Manhattan. I've actually had to stop. I've had to start saying no to a lot of those things because it just can also too be such a time suck. But some of the kind of more the events I've gone to recently that have been served a purpose for the business are just like things that I can speak at, or things usually Esther speaks at a lot of things. So I'll always go listen to her. I always meet the most interesting people with Esther when she's speaking. I wish that happened more here in Montana, but again, it just comes down to there's more people, and there's just more people starting companies and raising capital than there are, people out here in Montana doing that.
What in the business environment in Montana is improving, do you think?
So in the business environment, I think that from what I've seen at Avanlee Care is more people taking a risk to join a tech startup. Air
quotes were had.
Yeah. A tech startup that has a lot of risk, high risk, high reward, but I would say eager to roll up their sleeves and kind of think, okay, well, if I stick on with this and it makes this would be a good opportunity for me. Kind of like what Greg did with,
Right Now Technology.
Yeah. And Oracle. And I remember this is like my one disagreement with Greg, because I like Greg a lot and I love Susan, and they've been so supportive of me and my son and just what I've had to go through and everything. But I remember Greg was like, why are you going back to New York? I was like, well, Greg, because I can't get a check here this early on. And he's like, well, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Handed me his book. It's a great book. And I think that again, it just goes back down. Everyone's founder's story is different. When your burn is when it takes so long to get a product to market. And now that I've done this, knowing how much money it actually takes to get a tech product built and into market, there's just no way that this was going to be like, hey, we coded this in our basement. It was Facebook and it went viral through colleges. Like that doesn't really happen that much. And if it does, it's like, it might happen 1 or 2 times a year, but there's millions and millions of people that start companies every year. So it takes a lot of time and money. But in terms of the thing I like I'm seeing here, just like even Rock 31 and the Big Sky Economic Development Forum and the kind of like Montana High Tech Business Alliance, like that did not exist. And just fun fact, through Scaling Montana, through Rock 31, and the event you guys did with Scaling through Montana, I met 2 investors. Our first 2 investors actually came from me being here last summer. Fun fact. And
that is a fun fact. Okay. Yeah. I didn't know that.
And this summer, I can say this, Larry McEvoy, he invested. He spoke here. And he was talking about making investments. I was like, okay, well then why don't you make an investment in a female founded tech company in Montana? And he was like, who are you?
You're like someone you need to invest in. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And so he ended up doing that. And then this summer too, I've met 2 other people here who have joined, the round. And so this being here, it played a role in Avanlee Cares because we have development. We have an office. When we come back here, we meet here. We've found investment here. But that wouldn't have been here, 5 years ago?
Yeah, I was just 22.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So not 5.
Yeah.
It's not been around for long, but good collision space, which we've been traveling a little bit, like looking at other places. And I think that's one of the biggest things is just having space for people to meet and meet each other, events, different things to attend. But it's just, there's not a lot yet.
Yeah.
The timing of the ecosystems always changes as we see the development of the photonics and the quantum that's taking place in Bozeman. I mean, a lot of it comes from people like Greg, who started a technology company and was quite successful. And that ecosystem doesn't come out of nothing. It's a lot of people doing hard work like what you're doing right now. When I worked at Big Sky EDA in 2000, 2001, I was running a NASA business incubator, and that was definitely not the time to be doing that. But now we're seeing more of the defense industry, more of the aerospace industry, more of the quantum and the photonics. The investment in supply chains for technology is changing quite rapidly. And I hope that gives you hope that as that ecosystem continues to develop here, where one of the advantages I felt like took place out of COVID was people recognize you can live in Montana, have a work-life balance, and find a good place to have a good quality of life. People have moved here for that reason. And I'm hoping that you're seeing the winds of change taking place. It doesn't sound like it's happening quite quick enough because you still are out of New York with a lot of your time. But I hope that it gives you hope when you see the Scaling Montanans and the things that are there to support, like the Bioscience Alliance and the High Tech Alliance. Is that what you're kind of alluding to?
Yeah. I like that too. There's just so much more women now going into tech as well, which just makes me happy because, it's predominantly kind of just a male dominated space, but
I'm sitting right here.
Yeah, I know.
I got outnumbered.
Yeah. Yeah.
What would you tell some of those, because you've been in this for a while, you've learned a lot, your founders' journeys are different, but what are some things you would tell people or companies or people wanting to start a company in Montana?
Kind of varies on, what the company is. But if someone was saying, I really just in general wanted to start a company, like I kind of said, I've always felt like this is in my DNA. And it's just what I am supposed to be doing. I felt really convicted about that because there were so many times I almost walked away from this because it, quite frankly, was just common sense was screaming, this is not going to work out. And it would have been a lot easier to turn around and leave, go get a high paying job and make a bunch of money and not have the stress of all of this. And so I would say it needs to be in your DNA for any type of business, because it doesn't matter if you're, starting a cupcake business because you really like to make cakes and cupcakes and you want to service the people and the families and Billings. Like that, I would love to do something like that. But it's still going to be hard work. It's just different challenges from I'm going to start a tech company and I'm going to raise seed money and then I'm going to go through a Series A. It's just different challenges. It's all hard. It's all relative. And so you just have to have it in your DNA to do this. And also be prepared to, most people, when I talk to young people, are just like, it's like a fad now. I want to be an entrepreneur because Instagram tells me I can be an entrepreneur and it'll go in my bio. And I'm like,
what does that mean?
Yeah. Like if you're going to be entrepreneurs primarily don't really make any money for a long time so you just got to be prepared. Like you got to, I told one of my investors, I live like a coyote. In the early days, we lived off virtually nothing. And we were really smart with money, with resources, with people. And until we got to the point where we were raising capital and everyone started to pay themselves. I just want to key point. I didn't pay myself for a really long time. Everyone else got paid. And when things were tough, everyone else got paid before I ever took anything. And I've always made sure that everyone was, during those times, paid before I paid myself. And so you just kind of have to have that tough mental tough.
So when you hear things like they just announced that 13,000 new business licenses were issued in the state of Montana in the first, I think, quarter is the numbers that came out. So we're on track to break another year's record of business licenses, businesses be created at the Secretary of State. How does that make you feel about that entrepreneurial environment?
That's actually encouraging. I didn't know that. That's super encouraging. I think that Greg has done an incredible job here. Having, just like, I don't want to get political because not talking about everything that Greg has done, but I'm from what he has done for like creating an environment for people to be able to come here and foster, like we were talking about the Entrepreneurs Magnet Act, like having
a great idea.
Yeah. A bill that's like, hey, you grow your company to 25 employees or more in the state of Montana on the sale of your company. You don't have to pay Montana. Is it state tax?
Capital gains.
Capital gains.
Yep.
Oh,
that's okay.
Yeah. Sorry. Capital gains. I mean, these are really great incentives for people to come here and start businesses. We just need to figure out the housing issue cost.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a little less bad, I'd say, in Billings. Bozeman, but yeah.
Conceptually, the Magnet Entrepreneurial Act was essentially, if we go back to the 1980s, once again, tech companies in Silicon Valley, you would have the startups, they would be purchased by large companies, and they very quickly, that entrepreneur would be spun out and they would start another company. So conceptually, his idea was we could foster that sort of environment here where we could continue that cycle of entrepreneurs starting, because it really, you don't make wealth in this country working a W-2 wage. It's based upon your ability to start a small business. That's really where we see wealth created in our country anyway. And I think that that's what he wanted to see. In the meantime, we had COVID and we saw an influx of a lot of six-figure jobs that came in, which that supplemented a lot of us ag producers that aren't making hardly anything right now with $4 wheat, I got to say. But I like the way you and I met. I think maybe the first week I started as a commerce director, and I was very impressed. You were very bold, telling me your story, what you were trying to accomplish, and so following you and seeing what you were doing, I always tried to figure out how could we bring in more of that angel investor, the venture capitalist. We worked on a couple of different things at Commerce. They're still in the works, but it was all because I didn't realize that there was such a lack of available capital investors. So I appreciate you having that conversation with me very early on in my tenure.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. I appreciated our conversations throughout the years. And, hopefully, I think one way to solve that, because I would say about 6 people a year from Montana, 6 or maybe 10, reach out to me and say, how do I just get the first check-in? How did you do this? And, I usually say, you can stay in Montana, you can keep your company headquartered here, and that's what I'd encourage you to do. But I would go pack your bags up for about 4 to 6 months and get on Craigslist, which is crazy. I know Craig from Craigslist now.
Oh, wow. Okay. Craig is real. Yeah, Craig. Yeah,
yes.
Avanlee, Craig. Let's just use the name.
Yeah, why not?
Which is so funny. He has an office in the New York space that we're in. Someone goes, that's Craig. I was like,
what do you mean?
That's a Craigslist Craig. He's actually a really nice guy. But anyway, get on Craigslist. I can get you an intro into Craig if you want to talk to him directly. But get on Craigslist or get on whatever people use and just be like, I'm coming into the city or Silicon Valley or somewhere and I need to meet investors. And I just tell people every single day, hit the streets, go to every event, ask for meetings with people, write to them, figure out what they're investing in and say, I followed your investment. I think this is why you'd be interested in my company. And just like, go ask. You have to just go put yourself out there and ask, and then get what you need and come back, live like a coyote.
And you've probably gotten plenty of no's too within all of this, right? I mean, like yeses, no's, like it's not just like you're going to go and do for 6 months and you're going to get all these yeses.
Yeah, no, I've heard no countless times. And so for every 100 no's, you get a yes. And that's about what it is like when you're raising capital. It's exhausting. And so that's what I would tell entrepreneurs to do. If you can't get from 0 to 1 here, then I bet you probably have a better shot of getting to 0 to 1, leaving, trying to find that capital, and then, but staying based here is just, I know that Greg would be like, disagree with me, but I've proven that wrong.
Case study we'll on see. That.
Yeah. But I would still, I hope maybe one day I'm writing, like Esther, I'm writing checks into companies of men and women who are wanting to do the same thing and build their business here. I think Billings could really open up as more of a health tech bubble here.
That's nice to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've talked a little bit about that too. What is that for you in the next couple of years that you're hopeful with Avanlee Care?
It's hard because some days I'm like, I would take this all over the world. And there's other days where, I have friends in New York who have had incredible exits in the last couple of years. We all started about the same time, and they've done a really good job, and they've raised money, grown their company, they scaled, they sold, and now, they're getting to do other things that they're interested in. I kind of teeter between those two worlds. And when that day comes on like what it is we're going to do, I know I have like a super supportive co-founder, but board that will help us make the right decision. There's a lot of things you kind of mentioned that my heart really cares about. I really care about poverty alleviation. I have really had my eyes opened up to just like the effects of probably fatherlessness in kids' lives. Things that I would like to see changed around foster care, especially in Montana and Yellowstone County. I was also told that like Yellowstone County has the most kids per capita in the state that are needing to be placed in homes. So there's a lot of things that I care about that I would like to spend more time, whether that be investing in, learning about, to try to like change that. We shouldn't, I don't know, in the United States, like it's crazy to me that we have these issues when we have so much stuff, we have so much space, we have so much access to capital and resources, but we just don't, most people don't really touch that. So those are things I also care about. So I also too just want to spend some time with my son, Adam. And
sweet little Adam.
Yeah. So.
Hang out with him. Yeah. And he travels with you too. So he's like a little travel warrior.
Yeah. He's really unique right now. He doesn't speak. So he's just very quiet. He is super smart though. And I just know one day he is going to like look at me and be like, "Hi Mom, can you please," and just say a full sentence, but he just is like soaking everything in and taking it in and learning a lot. Him and Esther are like two peas in a pod. They're both really smart. And they just like, every time I'm with them, they're just like staring at me, shaking their head. You two can hang out.
Oh, that's very sweet and endearing. But you have a very big heart and caring. And I think whatever's next for you, it'll be exciting to see what comes and your announcement and those exciting things.
Yeah.
It's been fun to have you on. Yeah. As I alluded to a little bit earlier, we end each episode with a couple rapid fire questions. So I'll start and then Paul, and then I'll end with the third. Okay. And they're ish, like rapid ish. I'm just going to toss that out there. So this one is fun because I love your style. So I love when you are back because I'm like, what's Avanlee wearing? I'm like, okay, it's good. Yeah. So I love when you're back because I love your style. So what's your favorite shoe in your closet and why?
Okay, so my favorite shoe in my closet is literally a Birkenstock.
Good. Okay, good. It's like our no shoes because you're not, which I relate to.
Because
no shoes,
it's just so comfortable and at home. In public, I try to look put together, but as I've gotten older, I'm like, oh, I just want comfort. So I know you're probably like, that was not the answer I wanted.
I do have to say that on the fashion sense, I wish that we had a video right now. If you saw what all of us were wearing right now,
Yeah, it's good.
It is absolutely cutting edge. I'm not going to lie.
It's fun. It's colorful.
Yeah.
Patterned. Yeah.
Yeah.
The question I got is, what's the best advice you've ever received?
The best advice I've ever received? That is tough to answer. I would say in business, the best advice I've received is to do one thing and do it really well.
Sure. Yeah. I would imagine being in Rock 31, you come across a lot of entrepreneurs that would take that advice to heart, that would help them out significantly.
Yeah. The best advice I think in general I've received in life is ruthlessly eliminate hurry from my life, and that comparison is the thief of joy. I'd say that,
nice.
Comparison is the thief of joy. Yeah.
That's really good.
Yep.
My last question for you, and as a reader, I'm curious of what you're going to tell us, but what's like a book or podcast that you would recommend people read or listen to?
I'm actually reading Red Notice right now.
Oh.
By Bill Browder, and his story about what happened to him about investing in Russia in the 90s and how Putin came to power and basically took what 22 oligarchs did to the Russian economy. I mean, so not a lot of people know this. I love history. Like, I really love history, and I read a lot of books about history, like the history of New York, how it came to be, how empires were built, how empires, like I think I read The Fall of the Roman Empire. Like, I think more people, if I was going to say listen to a podcast or read books, it'd be about, I think more people need to know the history of just this country, but just history and subjects in general. I feel like we forget history. So, and then it does repeat itself. It feels like it's about to repeat itself in some areas of this country. So
where can people, thank you for being on, and it's been great to finally have you on our podcast and hear your story. Where can people get connected with you and find you and Avanlee Care?
Yes. So if you want to email me, you can email me at avanlee@avanleecare.com. I always respond to my email. Where you're going to find us is me. It's kind of more challenging, but it depends on where I have to be for the season. But I would say just email. I have social media. I don't really do much on social media. Probably more on LinkedIn on Avanlee Care, and like I finally got a Twitter. I don't really use Twitter.
Me neither, but I don't know how. I don't know.
Yeah.
LinkedIn though.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Avanlee.
Thanks for listening to The Vault. Connect with us on Facebook at The Vault at 201 North Broadway or Instagram at TheVault_201. Or check us out on our website, thevault@201.com, where you can subscribe to our weekly newsletter. See you next time.